Factory blade guards are often described as ineffective or difficult to use. Many of those kinds of problems are caused by the blade guard never being set up properly in the first place. In this video, we'll look at the basics of setting up a common blade guard system. Blade guard systems consist of the blade guard itself and the anti-kickback pawls, which in this case are removable. Those components are mounted to the splitter plate. Since that's the basis for the guard system, that's where we'll start in aligning it. This saw is also capable of using a riving knife. Because the riving knife uses the same mount as the splitter plate, once we get this aligned, you can interchange these without a problem. This saw is a fully adjustable splitter mount that uses a screw in each of the four corners for adjusting the plate's position relative to the blade. Your saw may differ in that it might use shims or something else, so check your instruction manual for the proper procedure for your machine. First, we want to make sure that the splitter plate itself is flat. We can do that by just laying it on the table surface and seeing if it rocks. If your splitter has a boss or mount that prevents laying it on the table, you can just use a straight edge, put that across it in a couple different angles, and make sure there's no gaps. Next, we want to set the blade at 90 degrees, and then use the square to check to make sure that the splitter or riving knife is also 90 degrees. If corrections are needed, do that at the mount if at all possible, rather than bending the splitter. The anti-kickback pawls allow the wood to move forwards very easily. However, if it tries to back up, they dig in and stop the board. This system can stop many kickback events that could injure you. Make sure that the anti-kickback pawls can move freely and that they're parallel to the splitter. Keep their pivot point clean and add a drop of lubricant now and then if they need it. The blade guard itself can often use a little attention just to make sure that it's operating properly. If the guard is hinged like this one, make sure that the pivot point is operating correctly and is clean and lubricated. Make sure that all of the components that are supposed to move do so freely so they can follow the board easily. Once a month or so, I brush off and lubricate these hinge points to make sure that this guard keeps operating smoothly. Molded plastic guards can have some leftover flashing along this edge that can be rough and catch on the wood. A little sanding with some fine paper will remove that flashing and smooth that corner out. That will make sure that the wood can slide under it easily without catching on the guard. With everything aligned and assembled, eyeball the guard to make sure that it's roughly centered on the blade. If you keep your blade guard system aligned and operating properly, it's going to be a lot easier to use and you're going to be a lot safer.